Hey, it's Tracey Wilson, Regional Director with Alzheimer's Tennessee, covering the Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia Regional Office. So great to be here today. We miss you all so much and can't wait till the time that we can be back with you in person. We know that needs to happen sooner rather than later, and we definitely miss our friends at the Kingsport Senior Center. Gotten to spend a little time here today, socially distanced of course, with our old friends Kevin and Michelle, and they're hiding on the other side. So we're happy to be here today. So what we thought we'd talk about for a little while today, first of all, before I get started, let me say that Alzheimer's Tennessee is here for you through a host of different scenarios and things that come up in your lives. So if you have a question or if you have a challenge that you are experiencing that we don't talk about today, we definitely want to make sure you know how to get in touch with us and when you can get in touch with us. So the first part of that is, if you've never visited our website, we have an extremely wonderful, and I can say that because I'm not the one that came up with it, we have an extremely wonderful website with a lot of very short, concise, wonderful resources. Our website is www.alztennessee.org. So you just remember that great football team, alztennessee.org. From there, I would highly recommend, if you're just starting your journey with a diagnosis of cognitive impairment or dementia of any type, there is a caregiver training academy or a Live Well Academy, and I suggest you get started there. So www.alztennessee.org. Of course, that can be accessed anytime. We know sometimes when you're in the role of care partner or someone on the support team for an individual, those 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, or 7 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday are the times that you need to be able to access information. The other way is through our helpline, and that is also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our local helpline is area code 423-232-8993. Again, 423-232-8993, and that can be accessed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, enough about that. What you tuned in hopefully for is a very short research update, so don't get nervous. We won't go over about 15 minutes from where we started. A very brief research update, and then some things that we can do to reduce risk. We've talked before, probably ad nauseum for some of you all, that Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia are very fast becoming the number one health concern. We know in decades past, other illnesses, other conditions have taken that front seat, but thank goodness, due to the marvels of modern medical technology, a lot of those things can be treated and some type of remission or healing exists. Unfortunately, Alzheimer's disease, other types of dementia aren't necessarily in the same category, but I will tell you that there are many research studies coming out that talk to you and show you without any question there are times, obviously not 100% of the time, but there are times, things that we do that we actually contribute to within our life through a lifestyle, through a series of choices, can make a difference and decrease risk. Now, before we go any further, I want to say that in my family history of dealing with dementia, as well as my professional history over the past 22 years, we all know people that did all the quote-unquote right things and still developed cognitive disorder or dementia later on in life. So this by no means is saying that those people could have done something differently or should have done something differently, and then they wouldn't have the diagnosis. This is just saying, based upon very wonderful research, we do have things called, or a set of things called modifiable risk factors, which, like anything else, we think about this global pandemic we're in right now, and we all know, wearing masks, staying socially distanced as we are today, washing your hands, using hand sanitizer or Lysol wipes when you can find them. Those types of things will decrease risk about, number one, getting the disease, number two, transmission of the disease. So we all know that. It's the same thing for cognitive disorder, and we've all heard the things over and over again, but my thoughts are, and you can tell by probably looking at me, if green beans tasted as good as French fries, then I would probably be a different weight right at the moment, right? So there's some things that are extremely simple to do. There's other things that are a little more challenging. So we've all heard about the brain exercises, so the Sudoku puzzles. If you all are doing those, you need to teach me how to do them. They are extremely difficult. I tried one time and I gave up very quickly. So I don't have a certain stick-to-itness when it comes to things like that. But with crossword puzzles, with find-a-words, with find a number, the numbers they've discovered are a little more complicated, a little more challenging than the find-a-words. Our brain tends to chunk certain letter groups together, certain amounts of letters together. So those may be a little easier, but if we're doing things like that, we've heard that they will challenge our brain. Very cheap. We can go to almost any dollar store, pick those up. I know that when programs and services get started back here, then you'll probably be able to pick those up at some bingo games and some social gatherings that we have. So very easily accessible, I guess is what I want to say. There is some research that shows the two greatest activities that can keep our brain sharp and as up to par as we would like it to be is, number one, learning a new musical instrument. And if I'm not mistaken, there are some wonderful lessons and classes, again, once things get back to full throttle here, or learning a new language. Now, are the majority of people going to pick up a dulcimer and learn how to play it? We can get you some testimonies to that if you would like. Or going to learn Italian or French? Probably not. So it's not an all or nothing type situation. So doing that daily crossword puzzle, getting together distanced with friends and doing the find-a-words and those types of things, that is helpful. So don't give those up. That is absolutely positively true. The more things we do, the more new activities that we participate in, the stronger our neuronal connections, and that's just basically a big word for our brain power. The stronger those become. So keep doing those things. Something as simple as making a new recipe, and who doesn't like to eat? Maybe most people don't like to cook, but most people do like to eat new things. Doing something outside of your wheelhouse. If you like to read a certain genre of book, pick up a different type. Pick up, maybe not a medical journal necessarily, but maybe if you always like those romance, I think they call it chick lit now. If you like those romance novels, maybe pick up a British mystery. You may find that you love it and you didn't know you loved it before, but it will also engage your brain to a different kind of world. So pretty simple, right? We do a class here once a month when we're able to, barring global pandemics. And one of the things that the class found the most interesting is writing with your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, try to write with your left. If you're left-handed, try to write with your right hand. And some people did beautifully, and you couldn't really tell that they had switched hands. Other people like me, it looked like we were just learning how to write. So we were in kindergarten, and it was all going back hill. But something that simple, if we're still driving, if we're still walking down to the lobby, maybe in an apartment complex that we live in, is there a different way we can go? That seems nuts, but that is enough to forge one of those new neuronal pathways to strengthen our brain and strengthen those synapses. So again, not everything is learning that new musical instrument or learning that new language. The last time I was here, we talked about sleep and the importance of sleep. There is a series of commercials, and I don't know that I'm supposed to publicize any one thing, but the people who develop these commercials are geniuses. I thought They're very attention-getting. The premise behind the commercial is how to not become your parents. And I love them. They're hilarious. They're the funniest commercials ever. My husband told me the other day, though, that he has no idea what product they're selling. So the commercials are wonderful, but it may not fully get the message across. So one of the things that we say quite often is that one of the commercials says that the waitress doesn't need to know your name. That's not real important. One of the things that we will say is that, as we age, we kind of tend to fall into a little rut. We do the same things. We go the same places. We talk to the same people. And of course, that may have been changed just a little bit with the world in the condition that it's been in since March of last year. But we do have a little more control than we think we do. So we need to make those connections and keep those abilities present as much as possible. So sleep. Like that commercial, there are certain things, people find it almost a brag or something wonderful that they only need X amount of hours of sleep. Well, I don't get more than 2 hours a night of sleep, or I don't get more than 4 hours. Like that's some thing to be proud of. That's not good. We need to be getting a minimum of 6 to 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. So I am 47 years old. I know that not getting up and going to the bathroom throughout the night is not a possibility for me unless I want to begin wearing undergarments that will contain all of that. So if we can get up, use the potty, or get up, get a drink of water, get up and do whatever we need to do, and we're able to go back to bed and fall back to sleep, they actually consider that uninterrupted. Now, what we shouldn't be doing is getting up and checking our phone, looking at a tablet, picking up an ebook, and trying to get that to lull us back to sleep. Those lights, even with those beautifully wonderful blue blocker glasses that they're selling now, that still lights our brain up and says, time to get up, time to party, let's go. So the likelihood of being able to get back to sleep and have a good rest of the time, it being uninterrupted, isn't going to happen. The other thing I can't remember if we talked about this last time or not, but a lot of people ask about melatonin. Melatonin, and I'm not a doctor, so, I doubt that I really needed to say that, but for legal purposes, I probably need to say that. With melatonin, it's not Ambien. So how we're supposed to take that is to take the dose that we've been, that we've discussed with our physician. There are very few interactions with melatonin, but there are some. So as with any supplement, any vitamin or natural type of substance, we do need to speak to the doctor or a pharmacist about that before we decide to begin taking it. But it is not meant to be taken and then we leave the light on, we read, we look at our phone until sleep kind of hits us. It is meant to be taken, we go to bed, the lights are off, our eyes are closed, and we drift off to sleep. So it is supposed to stimulate additional melatonin, which is needed. It's produced naturally for the sleep cycle. If we are kind of tricking it with blue lights and regular light, it's not an Ambien, so it's not going to kind of knock us out if we don't do our part to make that happen. So just remember that. We do need a good amount of rest. Without that, our brain is not able to recycle and get rid of all the toxins and all of the bad gunk, how's that for technical, that we have developed throughout the day. So that is important. It's not a good thing if we think that we can get by with a couple hours of sleep. And wherever the lie started that as we age we don't need as much sleep, that's not true. So like the commercial that says, the waiters don't need to know your name, and they're not television programs, they're shows, that is not true. We need as much sleep as we've ever had. We talk a lot about physical activity. Physical activity, we know as we age, as abilities change, as all of those, all of us probably at some point have a little bit of our friend Arthur visiting us, we have to change the way that we do those things. It's also thought that it's kind of, to the wall, all or nothing. There's a lot of research that's come out in regard to 20-minute intervals, 30-minute intervals that can be broken up throughout the day. Something that increases our heart rate. Again, that's something that we definitely need to check with a healthcare professional before we begin doing that. Things that can be done in the chair. It has been determined that is helpful as a full-blown cardiovascular workout, especially if we're doing things that get our hands and our arms above our chest. Anything that gets it over our heart is going to increase our heart rate naturally and can really help build that cardiovascular system. We know that 80% of the blood and oxygen from every heartbeat goes directly to our brain. So if we're doing something that's either hindering that or helping it, we're going to be able to see it in brain function. So there are things that we can do to reverse. There are also things that we're kind of coming up on time that we need to wrap up. So I think the other thing that we need to address our food choices. A lot of people don't like when I talk about this, and I'm going to be like your third grade teacher or your parent that says do as I say, not do as I do. I'm trying. I'm trying to follow some of these things, definitely myself. But if you'll get on the Google or the internet, whatever search engine you use, and look up the MIND diet, the MIND diet. Basically, that is a smushing together of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. Mediterranean, of course, is the most heart and brain healthy diet that exists. That isn't my opinion, that's research. So, but in America, if we determine that something's a little too hard, what do? We change it and we make it more doable for us. So the MIND diet is just that. So Mediterranean, it was kind of thought we needed to adhere to that about 100% of the time. That's really hard. We were talking about some delectable things before we got started today. Those probably, that sugar and those types of things probably wouldn't fit into the Mediterranean diet. The MIND diet is a little more forgiving, so they determine if we can do that about 55 to 65% of the time, and it's pretty lenient on everything other than dairy. And that's where we lose a lot of people because we like that cheese, right? So dairy is very limited. They recommend that we don't have it any more than a time or two a week. However, red meat, that isn't something typically that, a lot of diets encourage you to eat. They recommend that no more than 4 times a week. And I will also add a caveat that in Tennessee, unless you are a registered dietitian, you're not really supposed to be talking a whole lot about food. But I've given you that disclaimer, and we have a handout. So if you would like the handout, we can send it to you most definitely. Reach out to Kevin or Michelle at the Senior Center, or reach out to us, and we can stick that in the mail to you. The information is also on our website. There are other things that we could talk about today, but unfortunately we've run out of time, and hopefully I've not bored you all to death. But we will be back soon. We don't know when, but we know they love us and we love them. And next month actually is what I'm being told, so we'll talk about some additional things. I'm a good sign reader. We'll talk about some additional things then. The last thing that I want to get across to you today is, again, if we've talked about something that's kind of sparked a question, or if you've recently received the diagnosis that maybe you are living with Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia, your spouse, a friend, loved one, neighbor, please reach out to us. We are there for you. Be glad to help you in any way we can. Until next month, we'll see you then.